Hello, mainstreamers and cinephiles and everybody in between. I'm Bryant.
And I'm Caitlyn.
And Operation Silver Screen is a go. Hello, welcome to Operation Silver Screen. This cinema-related operation has been created to clear our desks from stacks of open cases. What are these cases? Well, even being the film lovers that we are, Caitlyn and I have a huge backlog of must-see films that we still need to experience. So each week we'll tackle a film that either one of us or both of us still need to see. We will then provide a debrief of our week's mission, giving our outlook on the film's popularity and significance, as well as providing our opinion on whether or not it's worth seeing and other fun insights. And Caitlyn, first, I have to ask, how does it feel there? How does it feel to be in that seat?
Oh, because I'm leading for once?
Not only leading, but because you have the privilege of being on the pedestal this time around, seeing a must-see film, a horror nonetheless, that I have not seen. Usually, it's me kind of looking down at you, and now you have the power.
That's true. It feels kind of good. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it feels.
I try to keep that seat warm for you. I spent a lot of days there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Don't adjust it, though. If you adjust it, just put it back.
I am a bit shorter than you. Might need to put it up a little bit.
A bit is an exaggeration. So what is this film, Caitlyn?
Well, our mission this week took us to the Cotton residence, home of Frank Cotton, but it seems the place has been mostly abandoned, save for some questionable Polaroids, a handful of maggots, and is that blood on the floor? This man definitely has an interesting sense of interior design between the Jesus statuettes and the rats hanging on the wall. Not sure if this is a home sweet home, but it's what we have to work with because this week we are getting a visit from Pinhead himself as we review the 1987 horror classic Hellraiser. We're taking a look at this film to prepare for the Legacy sequel premiering on Hulu October 7th. So before we get into it, I want to mention that this first part of our debrief will be spoiler-free, as we talk about our overall thoughts on the film, but as we move into the classified part of the mission, there will be some spoilers on the story. We'll be sure to give you a warning when we get to that part, but let's go ahead and get into why we chose to watch the film this week. And Bryant, you said I'm in the hot seat today, but I was the one who have watched this movie before. Is there a reason why you haven't seen this film yet?
Yes, that's because I'm not sick and twisted like some people. No, like I said, I've seen most horror films too, especially a lot of the popular ones. And this one, I don't know, it's just something that never really got my attention. I think one of the problems I had is that I felt like it was just going to be a gore fest or torture porn. And that kind of steered me away. It's not that I don't, I can't handle that stuff or I don't like to see it. I do. It's just not something I always go out to watch. And I think I kind of had my fill at some point in my life. Like when I kind of found out about those films, I watched a lot in a short period. And I was just kind of done. It was getting to that point, like all the ones that I were finding just had no message to them, or they had like this great elaborate message when it was just like, oh no, you're just trying to be intellectual, but really what you're doing is just tearing people apart. But I did want to watch this film not too long ago. Like I was ready to watch it. And I think it was because we had the podcast. I was like, oh, no, I'm going to go ahead and save this one.
It kind of sounds like you had the same reservations that I had for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was not correct because that wasn't a really that gory of a film, at least on screen.
Yeah, and this movie wasn't what I was afraid it was going to be. This movie is gory, and it did horrify me, but it's not like some of the films that this had inspired. And it wasn't just all about the torture porn. Actually, there's no there's like quick torture porn in here, but it doesn't go on just for the whole film, which I thought it was.
Yeah, when I first watched this film, it was probably maybe a year or so after college. Like I knew it was like not long after that. And I was still watching TV on just like little tiny like computer monitor sized television, not very good quality. Like it was my TV that I had with me in my dorm room, so that's why I have that distinct memory. And I went into it pretty blind. I didn't really know anything about it except that I knew that it was considered a classic horror, that Pinhead was considered a classic villain, so I really didn't have any preconceived notion at all when I went into it. And let me tell you, watching that film on a little TV does not really do justice to the film. You always hear some of these like directors saying, oh, you need to watch this on a big screen, you need to watch this on a big screen. And I kind of get it now, because on my second viewing, it really was like watching a film for the first time all over again.
I get that. That's why I was kind of like downgrading every once in a while, just to go back and look at my TV and be like, oh, this is great. Just to be able to because you kind of get used to it.
Yeah, you get spoiled with a good TV. So, what were you able to find as far as the critical reception to this film?
For the critical reception, I was able to find that the IMDb has this at a 6.9. Its Rotten Tomatoes score is 70% critic rating and 73 audience rating, which is about what I expected. So it's not certified fresh, but it's still a positive score. This is in the top 200 Rotten Tomato horror movies, though it is very low. It's like number 197, I believe. To put it in perspective, it's just right above Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors, which I don't know if you've seen that movie.
I'm not sure. Nightmare on Elm is another one where a lot of the movies I saw streaming on like AMC, streaming on TV, so sometimes they kind of blend together.
They really do. There's no like, there's no structure. There's no sense
No, there's not.
to the films together. And this does have a couple Saturn Award nominations.
Yeah, it was nominated for Saturn Awards for Best Horror Film, Best Music, and Makeup, and it won a couple minor awards at smaller venues. In general, I saw that the reception for this film was pretty mixed. Some praised it as imaginative horror, others criticized it for the opposite, saying it wasn't very imaginative. Some said that the gore was inventive, others said that it had bad writing, bad acting. It was altogether mixed, and it did receive a little bit better reviews in Britain. One critic called it the best horror film to be ever made in Britain, though I'm not really sure how many horror movies have been made in Britain, so I don't have a point of comparison there. It was also banned for a period of time in Ontario, just for the gore, the torture scenes, and just the general depravity of it.
None of that is surprising.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I don't know if the British have made a horror movie. I don't know if there's an English horror movie.
Well, it's this one apparently.
Wait, this was British?
I don't think the film itself is British. Like, it's not, like, the actors, they're not British or anything. Like, it definitely isn't a British setting, but it was filmed in Britain.
Oh, yeah, but there's so many places. Lord of the Rings isn't a New Zealand movie. It's just filmed there.
Yeah, but still, somebody was liking that it was from Britain. Now, this is Clive Barker's directorial debut, based off his novella The Hellbound Heart. And for me, Clive Barker, of course, is a big name in horror, but I knew him as an author, first and foremost. I knew him as a fantasy author. I know he wrote I think it was a popular children's book called Aberrat that I remember seeing a lot in bookstores. So that was kind of like how I knew Clive Barker. Did you know much about him beforehand?
Wow, you're really just going to put yourself on that seat.
I'm a nerd.
You're going to take a couple steps up on your high horse? Oh, have you heard of Clive Barker? Oh, the author? Yes, I have. Oh, no, I think I've heard his name before. It sounded very familiar. I couldn't tie him to anything, but I've heard the name plenty of times. I think it's really cool though that, being a writer, I don't have any published work, but I do like to write. And I think it's really cool that he wrote a novella and then got to adapt it into a movie.
Yeah, there's a story that he accepted a job not having much knowledge on directing. He wanted to direct his own work because some previous adaptations he wasn't really a fan of. But he went to the library to check out books on directing, and they only had like 2 books and they were already checked out. So he really was fresh to this.
Yeah, and what I read is that the cast and crew were very accommodating to him. He said it was a very easy set. He didn't even know things like what's the difference between a 10 millimeter lens and a 35 millimeter. But no one was like real pretentious. No one was having an issue with him being in the director's seat. They were all very kind to him.
Mm-hmm. And so, for those of you who don't know, Hellraiser is the story of Frank Cotton, a man searching for the ultimate pleasures and experience in life, which leads him to opening up a puzzle box that opens a portal for an extra-dimensional sadomasochist race called the Cenobites, angel to some, demons to others. After Frank is tortured and killed by the Cenobites, his brother and his wife Julia move into their family home. But after an accident, Frank is given another chance to live, and he enlists the help of Julia, who he once had a passionate affair with. So there's kind of a lot going on in this movie. You know, there's this family drama kind of underneath the surface here, but it is a story of pleasure and pain. That's what it is. So, Bryant, what was your opinion going into this film?
So I wasn't really looking forward to this film. I'm going to start off with that because we're right now watching the Halloween franchise. So I've already seen 2 of the Halloweens up to this point. We also just got done Hocus Pocus and Hocus Pocus 2, which is a weird shift from that to this. And also we're going to have to watch a couple of the other Hellraisers. So I was like, I really don't want to do this. And then I talked to my mom, and she said how she really liked this movie growing up. And I told her, I was like, what I know about you growing up, that's not a surprise. Like, I just imagined her torturing my aunt with this movie. Though, actually, I spoke to my aunt to see if I could find anything like that. And no, my aunt's like a couple years younger than her, I think 2. But I did find out that my mother would have like Poltergeist on rerun for about 6 months. And she would eat red Jello while watching it just to torment my aunt.
Oh my gosh.
Some great sibling rivalry. So I saw this movie 2 nights ago, and I was a little upset when you said, hey, can we record Monday and not Sunday? Because this movie was on my mind heavily when I was going to sleep, and then last night as well. And it's not the reason you think.
Huh.
And you know how like when you watch a movie and you just have something on your chest, you just want to talk about it right away. And that's what I want to do. Like, before really getting to like into my opinion, like structuring it, you know, going from the beginning to the end, I just want to talk about one thing real quick, and that is the amount of questions I had in this film.
Got a lot of them,
like,
huh?
I had so many. So, I mean, obviously, if you've been following the podcast, if you know me, you know that I see a lot of things on the screen. I just see a lot of things in general. So I can't help but see just little things as well. It probably doesn't help that I watch Cinema Sins as well. I keep up with that. But I just had like a lot of little questions throughout this film. Like, things just didn't add up. And so I'm not going to hold it against the movie too much. There are some bigger ones that I think affect the story. These, though, is just like, what? Why is this here? Like, there's a part where the Cenobites show up, but before they show up in the room, there are no candles. The Cenobites show up, and there is a circle of candles. And then they go back to that room when they're not there, and there's no candles, which means that the Cenobites either have the power to summon candles, or that they come in with a bundle of candles, lay them out, and then one of them, you have to meticulously like light candles. You can't just, it's not a quick thing. So they have to do all of that before it goes in. The way Frank answers a phone is very aggressive. I don't know if you caught that one.
Oh, yeah, that was very aggressive.
When they're sacrificing the men in these movies, the way they're picking them up is by not even day drinking, it's morning drinking. Like, it's first thing in the morning, she's picking up people at the bar, which I found crazy. I mean, granted, it was the 80s. I know smoking was a big thing, which I got to talk about the cigarettes in this. And then when she goes, there's a moment when the final girl, Kirsty, is in the hospital, and the way the doctor is treating her is like she was some junkie or murderer or a combination. I'm just like, what is this place? So it was just like a lot of that, but it like kind of gave me an enjoyment as well that I was having all these questions. Oh, there's a big one we'll talk about in spoilers, that there's like a cutting of the rat, and it makes no sense. It's just supposed to be creepy, but it does nothing. It's like, why was that a thing? So I feel like they were just having fun on set. I talked about in Texas Chainsaw Massacre how they set up the scenes to be creepy, but it has a purpose. Like, they're trophy collectors. Like, that's what they do. They get roadkill and people, and they go ahead and they cut them up, and they set them up. Here, things were just creepy just to be creepy. It was just completely nonsensical.
It's not nonsensical. They wanted to give you the ultimate experience of pleasure and pain.
it got to the point that in my notes I asked, what world are we in? Like, this isn't actual, like, this isn't based on our Earth. Like, this is another place, another law. I guess it's just the 80s.
Well, I just assumed that they brought the atmosphere with them through the extra dimensional travel. Like, it's not just them coming through, it's an ambiance, you know? They gotta have the right ambiance.
They bring the ambiance.
Yeah. Got the right vibes, so, like, you know, they're gonna have a time.
So,
don't know if it's a good time or a bad time, but it's gonna be a time.
I'm just imagining that this is now a business and is labeled Cenobite Catering, and someone leaving a review. They really brought in the ambiance.
They do.
They went the extra mile. Like, the one of the two of the last three notes I have is, where are we? Question mark, exclamation mark, and then what? And then just followed by punctuation. Because the second to last scene from this blew my mind. I absolutely love that. That alone was just like, this is why I like watching film, because sometimes things just happen, and it is amazing. But so to actually go on my review, so I had to get that off my chest. It's been on my mind, and I know you won't have any answers because there are no answers.
No answers.
It's just that's just what happened. Well, we're going to a couple in spoilers.
Seems like this was quite a bit of an experience for you and your mind there. Are you okay?
Yes, between being confused and horrified at the same time, and not even like actually it wasn't even the same time. It was just back and forth. I was just, what? Ugh, what? Ugh. So this movie, that sorted to the side. Just to know, that's honestly where my headspace has been the last 2 days.
2 days. Oh my goodness. Quite an effect.
Yeah. The last 2 nights. Yeah, and you know I have trouble sleeping, and my mind just goes everywhere. But this is where it's been focused. Now, as far as this film, I will start with that. I was surprised by this film. This is not what I thought it was going to be. I thought the Cenobites were going to show up. Some people were going to end up in hell, and they were going to get tortured by these Cenobites and have to find their way out. No, it was different. It wasn't like the average slasher around these times either. And I found that interesting. I thought that was really cool that there was more of a plot and a story here. You said like there's a lot of things going on, and one of the big things is that Frank finds this cube. He goes to hell. He comes back, and he convinces his sister-in-law, who he had an affair with, to kill people to bring him back from the dead. And I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, okay, they added something here. And then 2 seconds later, I wrote, never mind, there's nothing here. All right, this is just weird now. It is a cool concept, but they don't really go much further with it. They don't explain why she's so in love with this guy. Like, I get it from what it seems like is that they have better physical relations with each other than she does with Frank. But it's nothing like that's really out there. I'm guessing the book may have more. I know they wanted to do more in the film with the S&M. So maybe like it's a kink that she's missing, but that doesn't really get told in this film. And then honestly, the only thing you really see that Frank does that's different, Frank does that's different from Larry, is that he puts his fingers in her mouth. That's it. Apparently she would do anything for you if you put your finger in her mouth.
I think it's implied that there's a bit of like knife play too.
Yeah, but it just, for a movie that's going so far with a lot of other things, but I guess that's, when you look at like US ratings even now, sex is, compared to other nations too, the way that sex is rated is way different than gore. We can see a lot of gore, but nudity sets things way in the other direction. Especially during this time.
I think there were some things that they had wanted to do more of the sexual nature of that relationship, but it is one of my biggest complaints actually of the film that there's this emphasis on pleasure and pain together in like these extremes, but you never really get to see the pleasure at all. You just see the pain.
Yeah, I wonder that too, because so I didn't understand the motivation with her wanting to be back with Frank, but then I also didn't understand the motivation of Frank wanting to get this cube. Like I read later, and I kind of got it because it was implied that he got this cube because he no longer could experience pleasure in conventional ways. He had to go way and beyond. And he goes way and beyond though. And I get it, like you kind of messing with the cube, you don't know really what the cube's going to give you, but he knew. And so it was like, why were you surprised that this happened? And what made you think that this was going to be good?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does go into it a bit because you see his first like sexual encounter with Julia. After it's done, he kind of is in anguish and he said it's never enough. It's never enough. So I think he's just always looking for the next thrill. And he's kind of like, we talked about Videodrome on this podcast. It's kind of similar to the main lead there, but she's always looking for something more of a next like dose of this experience. It's almost like an addictive type thing.
Yeah, I didn't think about it. Actually, I was trying to think about the movie where we were talking about the word I can never pronounce. I pronounced it correctly yesterday, but I tried to say it before starting up.
Sadomasochism?
And I can't. Masochism?
Yeah. Sadomasochism?
Masochism.
Sadomasochist. Masochist. Okay, it's harder when you add an IST to it.
Oh, God. Sadomasochist.
Sure.
Yeah, I think Videodrome did a better job with that. That's a really good point that you brought up. I think they do a better job of showing that you have to get the next high. And I think they show that well because they show like kind of the little bit. Like you kind of start with the cigarette burns and then the poking through the ear. This just kind of goes right into it, but then what also they go right into is not that much. They just like, okay, finger in the mouth, they're having sex now. I'm like, all right, what? I'm like, this is not enough to really kill people over.
Yeah.
And Frank isn't a charming guy either. He's very short on words, and he's aggressive. I mean, he's got kind of a intimidating presence, but that's it. He's also not a really good actor. I'm glad when they switched him out with the other actor who was in the makeup. That's when I started getting a little bit more out of him. So I think with like I was kind of missing out on the motivation, but I was still going with the story, which is a story that's very similar to A Little Shop of Horrors, which I know you haven't seen. It's another movie which I think does it better, but this movie, I thought that was a cool premise. And speaking of the characters, I mean, Larry does his job well. There seems to be a little bit more to his character. I really like Kirsty. Kirsty was fantastic. We made a list of our top final girls. I'm not sure if you posted it on Instagram yet.
No, not yet. I was going to save that to when we did our Halloween episode.
Yeah, so Kirsty, I saw her on a lot of top final girl lists, and I understand why. She's not going to make my top 4. There's reasons for that. But I loved her in this movie, especially near the climax. The climax, I mean, a horror film, any film really, especially a genre film, has to have like a great climax. And I think this is one of the better ones. This really kept it going during that time. And this as a horror film works really well, I think. Even now, you say you watch this up on an upgraded TV. I think there's one part where it doesn't hold up too well, where the things actually look like they're just plastic dollar store trays. And again, it was, what are these things? They're like these giant bars with body parts spinning around in circles.
Yeah.
That's it. That didn't look so great, but everything else looked really good. And what actually looked really good is when Frank is coming back to life.
Yes.
And they're doing this reverse shot of it, and it's like, imagine seeing like a body, just coming to life from the brain and from the stem, and it's disgusting. It was so bad that my Amazon actually crashed. Like it actually crashed. Like I couldn't even get the video back up. I couldn't get Amazon Prime back up. And I was actually curious. I was like, should I even start this movie? Because I feel like this is a sign.
A true horror story.
So I was watching this right before bed. Yeah, I was like, this is the part of the horror movie where they're like, you can either take this extra step or you can back off now. Like, technology was the harbinger to me. And I gave it some time. I was like, I'm going to try it one more time. I played some Cyberpunk. I put it on. I'm going to try this one more time. And it worked, so I went along with it. But I think the horror works really well. I wish I saw more of the Cenobites, but seeing what they were in here was great. I think especially for a first film, like they did enough just to interest you. So this movie, I think it lacks a bit with the story and with the motivation, and it does really well with the horror. For the most part, I had a good time with this film. Between the terrifying imagery and the amount of questions I had a fun time.
Yeah, this film was definitely more gross and gory than I remember, because like I said, I was not watching it on a very good TV. And it's kind of funny. So I was sitting down with my boyfriend as we were going to watch this. We're going to watch it together. And I was debating if we should watch this or if I should watch the next film in the Michael Myers movies in my rewatch. And we were eating dinner at the time. And we're like, all right, let's just put on Hellraiser. Like, this one's a little bit more pressing to watch. Let's just watch Hellraiser first. And that was a huge mistake to watch that during dinner, because there are some parts that are very, very disgusting, both from the body horror point of view, and also for me, that's a big no-no, is like the insect horror. There's a lot of insect moments in this film that really got to me, but I did not like. So it was not great. It was not a great experience for that time when we were eating dinner. But I do think that I enjoyed this film a bit better than when I first watched it. One thing, I do miss the bright red blood in horror movies. We don't really get that anymore, but it kind of like classic horror movie, bright red blood, whatever ingredients they were using at the time to use that blood. I do kind of miss it because there is a very like aesthetic quality to it that's present in this film that you do kind of miss in modern horror movies.
I agree. It's like, it definitely looks fake, but sometimes it works for the aesthetic. I think Suspiria has it best.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just fits so well in that realm. And actually, because we've been watching a lot of horror movies and seeing a lot of blood recently, I actually ended up cutting my knuckle and it started bleeding. I looked at it, I was like, it's pretty bright red.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't too far off. My only thing, and it's kind of it's one of those like profession nitpicks, is when the blood's been there for a while and it's still bright red.
Yeah.
Like, it hasn't darkened or coagulated or dried up. That always bothers me. Because I was watching, actually, it was Halloween 2, where there was just Michael Myers just leaving a bunch of bright red blood. I'm like, that's not how blood works. Also, that movie has some questions too.
Well, we'll talk about that in a different episode. But yeah, I agree. I think that nowadays horror, they definitely go for a much darker blood look, but blood is pretty bright red when it first comes out, at least. But I do think it adds another element to the color of the scenes. And speaking of color, what did you think about the use of color in this film? Is there anything that you noticed particularly? Because there's one thing that I noticed that was bothering me.
I think, does it have anything to do with like the filter? No. I think I know what you're talking about. I can't. You're gonna say it, and be like, yes, but just go ahead.
We got the foreign country filter and color grading going on in this film. It's pretty much a cold movie. It's dark. It's kind of dreary except for the blood splatters. But when Frank's abroad trying to get his puzzle box and he's talking to an Asian man, or even when Kirsty and her father went out to an Asian restaurant to get some food, of course they had to bring in that warm filter because, you can't tell that you're in another country until you give it that warm filter.
Okay, yeah. But I thought that filter was kind of throughout the film. It's just that when they went to those places, they darkened it a little bit.
Mm-mm.
But I felt like it kind of had this brown color to it. But I definitely see what you said, and I thought about that too, that they were at the Asian shop to buy this puzzle cube. I was thinking, I've seen this in the Gremlins, and I feel like I've seen it in other films, but I don't know where.
So it might have come from this. But it's just the fact that even when they were in just a restaurant getting food, it was like, it's Asian, bring out the Asia filter. So that was a little bit of I don't know if it's a nitpick. I mean, they do it for a lot of movies, and it's kind of messed up. But otherwise, I think that this film looked pretty decent.
Yeah, especially coming from, again, a director who is a first-time director who doesn't, it's not like he studied or anything. He tried to study. There were no books on it. And I think, well, actually, no. Because they had to work also from, like, a lot of short spaces. Because they were filming inside the house, they can only use so many angles. Only the attic was an actual set. Everything else was actually in the house, in the halls. So it was a bit hard to film, but I think it came out looking pretty well. There was one shot at the end of the film which I thought was cool, but it just kept going back and forth, and I was like, all right, I kind of got, I got it. But it just kept going and repeating it.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit about the Cenobites and specifically Pinhead. So Pinhead himself, it's a nickname. It's not his actual name because it's never mentioned in the film itself. And Clive Barker himself hated that nickname. He kind of refers to him as the priest most of the time. And he got the idea for Pinhead because he attended an S&M club where he saw people getting pierced for fun, and that is what inspired him. So what did you think about Pinhead himself and the rest of the Cenobites?
What I thought about the priest?
The priest, yes.
I'm going to give him the correct nomenclature. Like I said, they were cool. They were there enough that they were needed for the plot, and they had my interest, and I could say that like I'm not really dreading the sequel anymore. I'm sure the sequel is going to do what a sequel does, and it's going to bring back more what people wanted to see, which is the Cenobites. I thought the Cenobites had a pretty cool look to them. I think that was actually, that was one of the things that I was actually kind of looking forward to seeing were the Cenobites. Because I've seen pictures of them, of course, and I've seen the parodies and the inspiration. So I was interested to see what they look like. And I think they look really good. And I think the practical effects and the makeup, they did a really good job on that.
Did the role that they play in the film, was that what you expected? Because I know for me, when I first watched, it wasn't what I was expected, because obviously I knew this as an iconic horror villain, but really they are secondary villains in this film, the primary being Frank himself.
No, like I said earlier, I thought this was going to be something totally different, and I wasn't expecting them to be kind of on the sidelines or to be brought up much later. They were kind of like the overseeing villain here.
Yeah, I agree.
I do like the priest for what when he was in there. I see why they made him the face. I thought he had great line delivery. There's actually a line I wrote down because I liked it when a character is crying and he tells them, "Do not cry. You're wasting good tears for suffering."
Yeah, that is a good line. What did you think about the acting? I know you like Kirsty, but for me, her acting was a little bit off for me. I think all of the acting in this film was a little overacting. It was kind of funny for me. And a lot of the flashbacks, I think, were just kind of silly that we see Julia, who apparently was about our age when she filmed this. She looks a lot older in this film, though.
Oh, really?
Or at least that's what
What's all
I
that?
saw. Hold on, let me double check and confirm.
Yeah, playing with the devil ages you. I did like Kirsty, but more of her character. Yeah, everybody's acting is so. The only acting I had a problem with is the one I mentioned, which is Frank. The way he shows up, his line delivery is bad. It's just bad. But I thought everybody was they were good enough. Nobody gave out a crazy performance. I mean, I think that could be attributed to, again, we have a first time director, somebody who is not used to the theater so much. So he may not be able to direct the actors, but I didn't really see an issue so much on screen. The flashbacks, the actual romantic flashbacks in this movie you mentioned with Julia and Frank, they were very standard lover affair flashbacks. They even had that soft filter around it, that dreamy flashback.
Yeah, I think that's why I thought that they were just kind of silly, a little ridiculous. And Claire Higgins, who plays Julia, she was 32 at the time of filming this. And she looks way older than 32.
Well, we haven't hit that age yet, so who knows what we'll look like.
Oh, gosh. But the acting, yeah, it didn't really impress me. And then you also brought in this other boyfriend, Kirsty's boyfriend, who I think is just supposed to be like her vanilla boyfriend. I think that's kind of what it was trying to portray. He was kind of a weird part in the film to me. I think that he just kind of randomly showed up at times, and then the scenes were kind of odd. What did you think about him and some of these other like side characters? We also have like a homeless man who makes an appearance, which we can't say too much without spoilers, but what did you think about some of these other little things going on in the background?
I feel like back in the day, you can't have a woman character without a love interest. Like now, I'm even thinking about all the final girls. I mean, she's probably the oldest of them because she's not even in high school anymore at this point. But yeah, she has this kind of love story that goes on. He's just another character. I don't know if that was to pad the runtime because this does only make it at 1 hour and 30 minutes. Now, the homeless man, yeah, there is something that we can't say about it, but I'm excited to talk about it. But yeah, that was just random. Like at first, you kind of just see him in the shadows. I was like, okay, he's probably standing there because in these horror movies, when somebody has the demon, the gloom over them, when a side character can tell, oh yeah, that's the main character to a horror movie. Let me stare at them and then show up later to kind of explain things. But then he comes back in another scene, and that's another one of the what, why, what's going on.
Definitely. Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of scenes like that in this film, but particularly with that character. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the religious imagery in this film because there's a lot of it. And actually, I got a jump scare out of this film because there's a moment when a Jesus statue falls down to the ground and it's meant to be a jump scare. And it got me.
What you've been telling me about hell houses with Christianity and how those were meant to scare you, that doesn't surprise me.
The Jesus was the one that got me.
Yeah. I see your sin. Yeah, they also said, I noticed this we were talking about it in Matrix, they say Jesus Christ a lot, or Christ, or Jesus. They say that a lot. That's their way of exclaiming in this movie. And then even one of the lines in this movie was switched to Jesus wept, which honestly I don't think made any sense.
Well, actually, I did read some articles that were talking about religious imagery in this film. And a couple big things that it mentioned was one, the film kind of puts Julia as Eve in this film. She's the one who is leading this family down a dark path with her choices. And so that's one big thing that you see in this film. But also, as far as the Jesus wept line that is in this film, it also talks about how suffering is just a part of Christianity in general. You mean when you talk about Jesus' suffering for crucifixion and just the Christian ideology that, part of being a Christian is to suffer for your Lord. And it's just a huge part of Christianity in general. And so it kind of mirrors this idea of pleasure and pain, right? Obviously not sexual pleasure, but this kind of religious experience, the pleasure that comes out of that mixed with the suffering that you're supposed to have as a Christian. So I thought that was an interesting take on the film.
I can see that, but I think it would have been, I don't think it was supported that heavily. And I think you have 2 points there, because you talked about this isn't to show, or at least with Jesus, isn't to show the sexual pleasure of pain, but there is some gratification to pain, or at least to suffer, is to give more weight to an achievement. But that's something that's not shown in here. And here is shown for the masochists in this. But I think that would have been cool if they were to play more into that religion. If Frank was actually to be a religious person instead, who went back on his beliefs or working on that in some way, I think that would have been more interesting. Because like I said, I don't think any of the motivations are strongly portrayed.
I mean, I think it works fine as a motif. I don't know that I would have wanted any more on that front, but it definitely serves as a motif. And I don't think you have to be too heavy-handed to fully get that symbolism across. So let's talk a little bit about the influence that this film had. There are 11 movies in this franchise, with the 11th is the one that's coming out October 7th. There's also several comic book series based off Hellraiser lore, and there's some spin-off novels. And it also inspired a lot of other horror films, such as Dark City, Cube, Event Horizon, and Cabin in the Woods also features a creature that is reminiscent to Pinhead. Is there anything that you were able to find about the influence that it had?
Cabin in the Woods, I definitely knew. Cabin in the Woods is my favorite horror movie, and I always knew about Pinhead in there, the Pinhead influence, but I've never seen the movie. Cube, an episode of Star Trek, Return of the Living Dead 3. Return of the Living Dead 3, you just have to look at the poster for that, and you can see, because they all have that style that the Cenobites have, which the best way to explain it is to explain how it came together, which is they made a combination of S&M, punk, and Catholicism. And those three things combined is exactly what you have here. And it's mainly the costumes and the Cenobites that had a huge influence. So other influences I found is Nemesis from the Resident Evil franchise. That's definitely I couldn't find anything to confirm it, but you look at Nemesis and you look at the Chatterer from this movie, it's just a buff version of that. They even have the same outfit. Also, and I rewatched the episode today, there's a whole Rick and Morty episode parodying Hellraiser.
Is there? I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, it's in season 5.
Maybe that's why I haven't seen it.
Yeah, they make fun of the whole pleasure pain thing because to them, pleasure is pain. So they have like Jerry just telling bad jokes and it gives them pleasure because it's so lame.
Ah, okay.
But then they have like this whole conversation of, oh, because you insulted me, I'm mad. But because I'm mad, it means I'm in pain. And because I'm in pain, that means I'm in pleasure. And it just gets like, it gets convoluted. But they also make fun of, they kind of make fun of like how we reference the priest, which is Pinhead. Because then they just name them what they are like, what they have on them. Like some guys, obviously, like his skin is stretched out by a coat hanger. They call him Coat Hanger Man. And there's another dude called Mousetrap Nipples. And you can guess like what that's about.
Yeah, I think that pretty much is how Pinhead episode. Got nicknamed. Like, hey, you over there.
Very basic.
Guy with the pins in his head. Go Pinhead.
Who, me? The coolest one I found is Berserk. Berserk is a very popular manga. Unfortunately, the creator recently passed away this year, but I believe it's the longest running manga out there, probably next to One Piece. But it's been around for a while. I'm not sure as long as One Piece, but it's been written for a while. It's supposed to be coming to an end here shortly. So I know like the anime community is excited for that. But I've found online that a lot of the lore from Hellraiser made its way into Berserk. So if you're a fan of that manga, I am not, or I never got into it. I watched like a little bit of the anime, but it was too much blood and gore for me. Like I'm not a big fan of the anime that's just blood splurting everywhere. That's why I haven't watched Cyberpunk yet. But if you do like Berserk, then go and take a look at the similarities between the two.
So let's talk a little bit now about the significance that this film had during its time. And we know that this came out during the slasher era. So one way this kind of differs from those films that were coming out at the time is that it does have a little bit of a darker psychological themes. I do kind of wish they had gone into that a little bit more. This also has a creative use of practical effects. I do think that the effects in this film do really make this film stand out. I mean, not that this is the only horror film at its time that had amazing practical effects, but it is definitely a big part of this film.
Oh, most definitely. Yes, and with the slashers, definitely, this wasn't just the slasher era. At this point in which Hellraiser came out, just give or take a year, the three big franchises you had was Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, and the Friday the 13th series, which were not only, they came out years prior. In this period, they were in their sequel period, which is not a great period, many would say. So around this time, give or take a year, you had Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, Halloween 4, The Curse of Halloween, something?
4 is The Return of Michael Myers. Revenge of Michael Myers was 1989. Return of Michael Myers was 1988. Season of the Witch was 1982.
Oh, okay. My bad. Yeah, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. So he's back. He left for only one movie. You have Friday the 13th with one of the most false subtitles out there, The Final Chapter. Yeah, that was back in 88. They said this was the final chapter.
Yeah, okay.
And look where we are. The final chapter of that book. And then they made another book. So you had, at this point, I mean, I wasn't around during the time, but I'm guessing people were kind of getting tired of this. And we know critically these movies were not doing well. At this point, they're just throwing sequel after sequel, and there's nothing to them. There's no overarching story. It's just another time to have your slasher come out there and hunt down teenagers. That's it. I'll give Dream Warriors some credit. It did do something a little bit different. I'm not sure about Halloween 4 and Friday the 13th, but I can say for Nightmare on Elm Street, that one isn't that bad. Some things in it are cool. And there are some good unintentional laughs in it as well. But this, it came in and I would say that this isn't a slasher. I don't consider Pinhead a slasher, at least watching this film. That's something I thought I was going to be able to cross off. I was like, okay, I finally watched Hellraiser. I can cross off, like, I've seen all the slashers. Little did I know I've seen all the slashers before watching this movie, because this doesn't follow that formula. I mean, yeah, people are getting picked off, but it really isn't a slasher movie. So this was something different during that time. And then also, at this point, you had at least Freddy Krueger he was doing jokes. Like, that was his thing. Like, he was in his comedic time now. Like, he was just full out horror comedy. And the producers wanted Clive Barker to do that with this film. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. So this is very much a straight horror film and not campy like the other films were, the other horror films during this time. But that also kind of put it in its own little niche. I would say that this isn't really for the masses. This isn't something that every teenager is going to want to go out and see on a Friday night. This may be a little bit much.
Yeah, and we'll get back to who we would recommend this film to, but I agree, it definitely is very different. It's a psychosexual thriller is what I've heard it called on some articles, and it really does try to give you some darker themes. I wouldn't go as far to say as like this was the elevated horror of its time, but it did try to give you at least a little bit of the human psyche. I don't know that it fully succeeded with that as much as I would have wanted it to, but it definitely stands out in that regard.
I mean, for its time, you can say it's the elevated horror, because that's a very low bar.
That's fair.
Like, you just have to provoke one intellectual question, and you're already above the rest.
So you're saying that this inspired the elevated horror today?
I did not say all that.
Okay, good. Because that might be a little of a reach.
We wouldn't have the Vivitch if not for Hellraiser. No, I'm not saying that.
I mean, would you like to live deliciously? Said the Cenobite.
Said this. No. That's the whole thing with the stupid cube. I don't understand how this happened 11 times.
I don't know. So another thing that I found as far as its significance goes is that it is often cited as a queer film. So it is often cited as a film with a lot of queer subtext, and part of it's just because it was partly inspired by these S&M clubs that probably had more LGBT people in it. Clive Barker himself is a gay man, but a lot of people say that it did offer this kind of sense of rejection of heteronormativity and the traditional family. And you can definitely see this with Julia's story and kind of her liberation away from this. But then there's also some scholars and critics that look into this, and they also think about just the way that the sexuality of this film is paired with like blood and this kind of sense of danger. It is very indicative of the AIDS crisis, which of course was a big deal at that time, and just with increasing homophobia and just the things that were against sexuality at this time, that there are some connections that have been made there between this film and that.
I got some long arms and I can't make that reach.
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those things that if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. And I know that in the new movie coming up, Jamie Clayton, she's going to be playing the Pinhead in the new film. And I know that she has an interview where she talks about the LGBT themes, and I think it's something that we're going to see even more coming up in this sequel. So I didn't get to watch her interview. I didn't want to watch it until after I viewed the new movie, but it is something to keep in mind as we go into that.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I had, is why the LGBTQ plus had a relation to this film, because I didn't see it. I mean, I can see how you make the emphasis for it. We talked about it before. We talked about it with a couple movies already, like especially with Forrest Gump. Yeah, you can put this message in it, like you can tie this message to it. Do I think it was their actual and full intention when they were making the film? Like, was it their conscious decision for that? No. I don't believe so. But I mean, if this is a good way for you to portray it, like if you're trying to make sense of something and this helps, then yeah, by all means use it as symbolism. But I don't think there's enough in this to say that this was the intention of the film.
I mean, I definitely think there are some things that probably got in there not intentionally, but I mean, with Clive Barker's background, I think that it probably did slip in there unintentionally. Some things. I don't think that this is, the best queer horror film, but, it's interesting that people have been able to take things out of it.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll see more in the. I know we're definitely watching the second one. We haven't decided if we're watching any others. I'm positive that we're gonna see. You already said it. It's been in the interview. We're definitely gonna see something in this remake, and hopefully they go all the way with it. I can't see why they wouldn't. I can't see why a studio will try to censor Hellraiser. Just seems like an odd movie to try to censor with their message. So I'm interested to see what they do when that's their conscious intention.
Yeah, I agree. We'll have to wait and see. So you mentioned before that this isn't really a horror film for the masses. So would you recommend this to cinephiles, or for a more niche audience, who would you recommend this movie to?
I would still recommend it to the general audience. I guess a little bit more niche. When I say the general audience, I don't mean everybody should go out and see the movie. If it's not your type, it's not your type. I'm not saying you got to go watch it. So I'll say this is like a general audience film. I think cinephiles will have some interest just if you're like me and want to cross off notable horror movies. But I don't think there's really anything else to take away as far as a cinephile. It's just one of those you gotta check the block.
I think as far as effects go and just overall, like I said, the ambiance, even though you had questions on it, I think that the film does a good job at giving a certain tone to it. So I definitely think there are things that cinephiles and horror fans in particular can take out of this that might still be present in other horror films, but it still gives a good way of doing things that is unique to this film. So let's go ahead and get into the classified portion of our podcast here. It's going to be our spoiler-filled discussion. We're going to talk about some of our opinions still with spoilers tackled on into them, as well as give our overall rating and final comments on this film. So if you want to see what letter grade we give this film, please stick around. Go watch the movie. Haven't seen it yet. Come back. Get ready for the 2022 sequel and join us for this discussion. So, Bryant, you said that you had something as far as spoilers go for this?
The dragon! What? How? Random?
Yes.
What?
I also had that in my notes. We mentioned before that there is a homeless man that is present in this film, and he kind of appears at random times. At one point, he goes to a pet store and just eats a bunch of crickets, and that really was a very hard part for me to watch because I was very grossed out. I don't do crickets. But at the end, he finally makes his appearance again, and this is after the Cenobites have been dealt with and everything is concluded. He just kind of shows up again, and he turns into a dragon, and he steals the puzzle box away.
A skeleton demon dragon, and flies away, and the puzzle box makes it back to the Asian antique store.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, I had a question about the whole setting. I was like, why are they out in the field? Okay, I get it. You guys started the center fire, but why are there a bunch of chairs randomly on fire around this area? There's no one else here. There's no one getting warmed up. These are like really blazing fires. Like someone's keeping these going.
Yeah, it was a weird setting because it was like a field that you feel like got some use out of it because there were chairs and stuff around, but why was it all just on fire?
Yeah, I understood the bonfire. It also reminded me a lot of Candyman, but then I started looking around like, why is all this other stuff on fire? There's no one out here.
Yeah.
And they decided to burn the box, which I think is a dumb idea. Why does everybody in a horror movie try to burn something? Like they live... It seems like they live by some type of body of water. Just throw it in there. Throw it in the ocean.
Well, isn't that what happened with Jumanji and then it came back? You can't throw it in water. It's always going to wash up somewhere. Yeah, I think that's somewhere. How the mask came back. It's always going to wash up somewhere and cause more mayhem.
No, Jumanji was buried and they found it while they were digging up the construction site.
No, I think that was later on, like at the end of the film. Like the very end. I think they threw it up the water.
Oh, yeah. Well, put it in a tree. I don't know. Try something new. Stop trying to burn things. It doesn't work. Well, actually, it may have worked, but, sometimes a dragon comes in and scoops it up. So, honestly, There's nothing you can do at that point.
It's someone else's problem at that point. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's definitely not mine.
Yeah, I did not get the demon dragon at all. No. I mean, I guess he's some being, but he, like, wasn't he stalking her even before she opened a puzzle box and the Cenobites started following her? So I think he's like a separate entity, but I don't understand his purpose.
Yeah, I'm guessing he's the guardian of the box, and he could. That's why I say you have that character that follows around the lead character or one of the leads, because he can tell that there's a presence above her. He's like, yeah, she's close to the box. I can smell it out. But why does he go into the pet store and just eat crickets?
That's what demon skeleton dragons like to eat.
Again, just being creepy to be creepy.
Yeah, it was.
But man, I don't know. I mean, I'm here for it. I was definitely here for it. It was. I don't know. Even right now, I'm flabbergasted. Like, it was just so random and unexpected. And I love dragons to begin with. And that, I mean, yeah, I dug it. I definitely dug it.
Yeah, I don't know if I was digging it, but like when the end of the film was coming, you know, I was like, oh yeah, whatever happened to that homeless guy she kept seeing? So I'm glad they answered the question. What happened to that homeless guy she kept seeing?
Yeah, story-wise, no, this makes no sense. Am I here for it? Yeah, I'm still here for it. I ain't gonna be picky about the dragons. Now, so the Asian man, he like, because usually what they're trying to do is they're trying to protect it so nobody else has it, but this one is literally making a profit off of it.
Yeah.
So is someone getting a cut? Does the dragon get crickets or something? Like, how does this...
Yeah, I don't know. There's definitely a process,
also,
a system that they're using here.
And was the cube, like, did it come back with Frank? Was it still there? Did it just stay in the real world? Because how does he make a profit? Like, because you can't just escape the Cenobites. Like, it doesn't happen often.
No, I mean, I think that it stays in the real world. Like, I think it was, like, left over there. I could be wrong, though. And I'm also assuming the dragon is also able to, like, move across dimensions, but I could be wrong. That's my theory anyways.
So why is the dragon just eating crickets in a random pet shop? You tell me this dragon can't do anything but as much money as they make off the box, is he not receiving a good enough cut that he can live lavishly or decently?
Yeah, you'd think, but I don't know. Maybe he just loves his crickets. Gross. So gross. That scene was awful.
It was almost as, again, he's just doing creepy things to be creepy. Like when Frank is coming up behind them when they're, when Larry and Julia are in the bed and he just comes up and he just cuts a rat in half. Like he just fillets it.
That was gross too.
And she's saying, one, that was gross. Two, could Larry not hear her shouting no the whole time?
Oh, that's what I thought too. I was like, does he really not hear this girl? Does he not care that she's like freaking out? Jeez.
Like, is this, I mean, this could be their thing. Like, she just wasn't using the safe word they usually use. But she didn't, and it took him like 11 no's to go, what is this? You're giving me mixed signals here. No, that signal was pretty clear. I don't know what point of this you thought, oh yeah, it's go time.
Yeah. Like,
go time to leave the house, yeah. Also, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. You get one in.
Well, as far as the rats go, like, I get that it was teasing, like, him killing Larry. But, yeah, it was gross. This guy had a thing for rats. Between that and, like, the rats pinned against a wall. Like, he had a twisted thing for rats.
That's kind of on the rats at that point. Because they saw him come back. They were scared. Why did they stick around?
True.
They got in. They can get out.
I don't even know what they're eating because all the food is, like, gone, maggot-ridden.
I'll tell you what they're eating, and it's the thing that I just wanted to bring up. Because they were putting the dead bodies in the other room. What? How? One, so did she do this in this time span of like 48 hours? Because those bodies would have been, well, they were already decomposed. They would have stunk up the house.
I thought
bad.
That too.
Yeah, the smell rises, but you would still smell it at the bottom levels. So I'm pretty sure the rats were eating the dead bodies in the other room. But so you're telling me you killed people and decided just to put them in the spare bedroom?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
The spare bedroom. They'll never check.
That was ridiculous. I feel like their whole, like, method for killing people and getting bodies, like, it wasn't actually the smartest, and I don't know how they thought they're going to get away with it.
I can see how they get away with it. There's no security systems. She's going and picking up men and bringing them back. And I got some question about the men. The first one, actually all of them, following her up into the attic. Look, I get it. You know, times are rough. Yeah, but there were sometimes that there were some red flags. One question I had about the first man. Is it common for people to take off their pants first? I feel like you always take off the shirt first.
I just thought of Worst Person in the World with Anders Danielson Lee just standing there with his shirt on. No pants. Way to poo.
Okay. But also in that movie, like, they went at it pretty quick. Like, there was no time. Like, it was 1, 2, bam. Here, he had time. It just, that, I was like, what does this say about a person? I need a cosmetology like quiz to lead me into this. What does it say if you take off your pants first?
I bet he keeps his socks on too.
Hey, some of us have weird looking ankles, all right? Never take my socks off on the first date when following a lady up to the attic that I just met doorman. Well, also, all these men were morning drinking, so
they were pretty desperate.
Their lives aren't going
They were
well.
pretty desperate. I think it was funny when he was like, so, like, we're not going to use a bed. She's like, no, I like it on the floor. And he's like, okay. Like, that floor looked disgusting. That should have been a red flag. Like, are you going to, like, mop or something first?
Well, it depends who's on top and who's on bottom. And only time morning drinking is acceptable is if you've been up since the night.
And brunch drinks.
And even then,
brunch drinks is the only time that morning drinking's like vacation drinks. Like, that's fine. But not like during the work week.
I'm not even talking about day drinking.
Not during the work week.
Yeah. Well, if you're not working, then yeah, day drink's fine. But morning drink, waking up and like you haven't finished breakfast and you're already drinking hard liquor, like there's possibly an issue.
At a bar by yourself.
So between taking your pants off first and morning drinking, you may want to reevaluate yourself. That should be our Instagram poll. And then the second guy I didn't understand because he was like, "Are you sure nobody's going to find us here?" Yeah, don't worry, you're safe. Okay, I just like to make sure I'm safe. Okay, let me follow you up to the attic, lady I just met.
Well, I think
what is your idea of safe?
He just didn't want to run into the husband. That's what he meant.
But still, he has a sense of caution.
Yeah. A little bit of sense there. Not enough sense not to get involved with a married woman, but enough sense to not want to meet her husband.
I guess it was the 80s. Men didn't have the best opinion of women, so maybe they were all like, what is she going to do? Which then makes me question, how many female serial killers, like during the 80s and 90s, are still out and about?
Yeah. I mean, Julia looked like a serial killer. Like, she had a certain vibe to her. She looked like she kills people. So I don't know what these men were seeing.
She reminded me of what's the main entity's name in Ghostbusters?
Oh, yeah. I don't know her.
That's who it reminded me of.
Yeah, I couldn't tell
like
you.
Gone
I don't
something.
remember,
I don't know.
but yes. A little bit, yeah.
Also, if your wife's hair style starts to get like more ominous and she starts to get distant and is really cool now with violence, get out of there. Just call it off. Like, don't bother. No, don't. That's a red flag.
She's also just a stepmother, and we know that stepmothers by default in films are always evil, right? So they should have known.
Yeah, they kind of set it up that she was, like, she had something with Kirsty, but I never saw that. They made it seem that her and Kirsty had a problem.
They did.
But I never saw, like, what their issue. They didn't really have much of an issue together.
Well, I think the issue was just Julia, that she just didn't have a very fun personality. Like, she wasn't a nice, warm person, and she was kind of nitpicky about things. She hates moving. He, like, the whole time they're first learning the house, he's trying to placate her and, like, not to upset her. And so I feel like she's just a very uptight person when she's with Larry, and that's also kind of why you see, like, a different side of her with Frank. But because she is this uptight personality she just doesn't vibe with Kirsty very much. She is definitely the cold-hearted stepmom.
But was still no match for Kirsty.
No.
Kirsty was a beast a couple times. I love when she has the puzzle box, when she takes it from Frank, and Frank says, "Give it to me." She just goes, "No."
Yeah.
Like, just straight up, no.
Yeah.
And he's like, one, just straight up throws it out a window.
Yeah, and I mean, I gotta applaud her for, like, you know, she runs back to try and save her father, so she got some guts to her, even though I don't understand why she didn't realize that something was off when she saw the bloodlines around his face. Like, this is normal for my dad, right?
Yeah, because he would have definitely fainted by the... Yeah, she should have picked it up sooner. But I mean, well, I was going to say, like, how soon... Like, how much exposure do you need before you start thinking, my parent has been replaced? Somebody else is living in their skin. So, but then she also just saw Hell Demon, so it should be a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I expected her to know right away that he had been swapped. Like, his bodies had been swapped. But the fact that there was blood all over his face, she didn't question that. She's like, oh, yeah, this is fine. Nothing happened.
Yeah, that there should have been some more questions. There was other things she was questioning, like, why did the Cenobites show up with all these candles? Actually, no, that was after. I also liked her character in being able to deal with the Cenobites. Kind of having more of a... I like to see a final girl be toe-to-toe with their slasher. And that's why Nancy is one of my favorite final girls. And she makes a deal with them, and I like that. I found that cool. Like, whoa, hold up. You want a guy named Frank? I can get you a guy named Frank. Get you a guy named Frank by 9 o'clock. Like, straight up mob style. Now, granted, they go ahead and they go back on the deal, and she solves a quick puzzle to bring them back, which I got some questions about the puzzle box. If you actually, what did you think of her as a final girl?
She was all right. I don't think that she stood out quite as much for me as she did for you, but I did like that she was kind of dealing with them, and she kind of, I don't know, she got stuff done. She was smart enough to realize, okay, this is the connection between Frank and the Cenobites, and this is what I have to do, and I appreciated that. But then moving forward, like the climax of the film and how she deals with the Cenobites at the end, it kind of just confused me. Because she does just kind of put the puzzle back together and then they're gone. And I kind of expected a little bit something more. So I wish I would have seen a little bit more of a triumphant moment from her, which I don't think I really see. And it's also lessened by her boyfriend showing up because I was like, why are you here? This is her moment. Go away.
I thought when she saw the puzzle, they would all go back. But it's like she was kind of solving the puzzle, unsolving it, and solving it again. Just to create some tension. I think it would have made more sense, but again, a lot of things don't make sense here. One of the Cenobites just shows up in a veil. Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
The globber, the fat man, she's running down the stairs, and when she encounters him, he has a veil on. He hasn't had it on this whole movie. No one has made any reference to a veil. He just has a veil on.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is supposed to represent there.
No, like, did he just get self-conscious all of a sudden?
Maybe.
Was he gonna propose? And the puzzle box is the big plot device here, and is what this next to the priest. This is what the movie is really known for. I like how the Cenobites show up and they tell her, "You solved the puzzle box, therefore you have summoned us and you must come with us." That's the easiest puzzle box to solve, quotations, because she just opens it, like, she just twists it around a bunch of times. You have an easier time solving that than a Rubik's Cube with far less deadlier consequences.
True.
Like, why is the reward you get to go with them? And it's not even like okay, this may be sort of fun. It's not like, oh, you solved the puzzle box, you get to be your own Cenobite now. And she's like, nah, I really don't want to do that. No, it's like, hey, well, first off, stop crying. You're wasting those no tears. You waste them for good suffering. Like, why is that the thing? Like, now we're going to bring you back and torture you because you solved the puzzle. How dare you?
Yeah, well,
and I really, again, not solved it.
That's why, like I said, like, I wish there was more of the pleasure to the pleasure and the pain. You know, they said that they're an angel to some, a demon to others, but you never really see any part of that that's appealing. And you get this idea that, you know, Frank is solving this puzzle because he wants a different experience. But I feel like there should be some part of it that is alluring, and there isn't anything that is a reward. Obviously, they get it more than they bargained for, but I kind of wish that it had a little bit more of that balance so we understood more so why people were solving this in the first place.
Yeah, this was just a dumb idea right off the bat. Like, and then when I was like, okay, you're supposed to get pleasure and pain, and then it immediately turns into just pain. I was like, I don't see any pleasure here.
Yeah, and who's calling you an angel?
I'm gonna write that on my.
Who are calling these people angels?
Yeah. Even as sick as Frank is, like the way he was sleeping, bugs crawling on his food, even he didn't like it. So who's calling you an angel? Like, this is something I'll write on my comment card when I'm done with their catering. Broad ambience. However, pleasure, not so much. Pain, 10 out of 10. A little bit of an imbalance. Little bit.
So do you agree, though, that, like, there should have been more to how she was able to defeat the Cenobites? I wouldn't even say defeat. She just kind of sends them back.
Yeah, she just sends them back. No, I thought that makes sense. Like, you solved the puzzle to send them back. I feel like the cue, when you pick it up, it should, like, unsolve itself, or, like, it should transform into an actual puzzle. Mm-hmm. And then you solve it, because she solved it by putting it back as a cube.
Yeah.
So the cube is the solution. So I feel like if you touch it and then you're not able to put it back together, that's what summons them. Because again, this seems more like a punishment, not a reward. But I guess, like, if you saw it, if there seemed to be more of a pleasurable reward, then yeah, I could understand, like, how solving it would lead you to this consequence. This effect.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you mean.
But I think they should have all went back together. I see why they did it, so you have more tension. Yeah. I wonder if the book was any different. I mean, I'm glad I got a Cenobite in a veil for some. Again, what was that about? I need answers, Caitlyn.
Did you notice the one Cenobite looked like Patrick from SpongeBob? Every time I looked at him.
That's the one I'm talking about. That was the one in the veil.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And he doesn't say anything, so he just shows him in a veil. So you can't even get answers.
Good old Patrick.
That guy, I forgot his name, but he actually worked with Clive Barker. They were both in the same, like, theater group that got that closed down, and he called Clive Barker out to see if he was working on anything, and he said, "Hey, this is what I have going on. If you like to, you can come by and you can come by and do this for us."
Yeah, and I think a reason why too, a lot of the Cenobites didn't really have speaking roles is just because of the prosthetics. It made it hard for them to talk. I know that for Pinhead, I think his prosthetics took about 6 hours, which they do take a long time. So props to those actors who were playing those Cenobites.
Yeah, a couple of them, the Chatterer specifically was supposed to have some lines, but it was impossible to talk with all that on.
I imagine it's pretty hot. You get sweaty, all those lights.
Oh, it has to be brutal. We talk about, it's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Them just being in the same dirty clothes was unbearable. So imagine being in just all of that.
So given everything that we've discussed, do you think that this film holds up?
I think it does. Aside from the beginning with some of the body parts, I think overall this movie holds up.
Yeah, I definitely agree, but I think that the gore and the effects, I think they definitely hold up. The scares hold up, because most of the scares are just from overall grossness. And so they definitely hold up pretty well. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Practical always holds up. Good makeup always holds up.
Most definitely. And I'm glad I made the better decision. And I specifically ate dinner before watching this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have anything to do. I just ate dinner. I said to myself, I'm going to eat dinner before watching this movie because I know what's going to happen.
Yeah, my stomach didn't hold up too well during my rewatch of this film. I don't know that I think that the acting holds up, but I do think that the story, it still has a sort of relevancy. I mean, I don't think there's any issues with that holding up. But the acting, I think with some modern acting, I would be curious to see how the film goes. So other than the effects, what do you think about how this film holds up?
Other than the effects, Yeah, the acting is subpar, but I mean, I think it's the acting is as good as subpar acting is today. So I don't think it's like that kind of, because I think Hocus Pocus had more of that acting that's pretty dated. Like you can really notice nowadays.
Yeah.
But I think this is well enough.
Yeah. Speaking of Hocus Pocus, one effect that I didn't think held up was on the puzzle box, you see the little, like, the Hocus Pocus zaps is what I wrote in my notes. Like the little lines going across it, it just was the same kind of effect as when the Hocus Pocus witches were doing their spells and it had the little zaps and you can see them.
Yeah, that's just the, what's it called? 80s lightning effect.
Yes, that.
We've seen that in so many films. We've seen it in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Like it's not great. It is what it is, though.
I guess.
I think there's far worse effects from the 80s and 90s that really pull me out of the film. The lightning one never really bothered me. Some of the other ones that look like 90s clip art or something like PowerPoint transitions that they try to do, those are the ones that really bother me.
Gotcha. I think the 80s lightning, it bothers me a little bit more than it does for you, because I see it and I'm like, this is kind of hokey. Other than that, yeah, I think the effects are fine. So let's go ahead and get into our overall rating of this film. Brian, you see that this film surprised you. It was different than what you expected. So does this get a higher ranking than what you expected to give it, or where does this fall?
It falls around where I thought it was going to fall around. I mean, I didn't think this was going to be a bad film, but I didn't think this was going to be a great film. And that's where I'm at. So I will go with a solid C.
Okay. It's kind of middle of the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, going into this film, I expected to give this a D because I did not like this film first viewing. The message, the story just wasn't really vibing with me. I didn't fully get to see the effects because, like I said, I was watching on a smaller television, lower quality television at the time. But I did like it better this rewatch, so I'm going to give this a C+. I'll give it a little bit above you just because the gore really was unsettling for me in the effects, and honestly that's where most of this film works for me, even though some of the story doesn't. Pinhead's not going to be my favorite horror icon. This definitely isn't going to be one of my favorite horror movies, but we're about the same, I think.
Yeah, and I know I had a lot of questions during this film. The only ones that really brought the grade down for me are the ones where it plays into the character motivation. The other questions I have, they would usually bother me, but not in a film like this. Like, I feel like I can't, like if I saw this in a more serious film and I had that many questions, then yeah, I'm like, all right, no, we gotta take away a little bit. But I see what they were going for. Again, it's a first time director. So those little things, and also they made me laugh more than anything. I mean, how mad can I get at something that was making me laugh, whether intentional or unintentional? But when it comes to the story, when you start having plot holes and character motivations don't add up, and you can't really get immersed in it, then that brings it down. But there's so much more that brings it up, so it really does kind of just fall into that middle ground.
Agreed. And are you excited to see where this goes in the new sequel? Or any of the sequels, really, because we're going to be watching Hellraiser 2 as well, and maybe another one for our bonus objective coming up.
I'll save my opinions of the reboot, of whether or not I'll be excited. I want to watch the sequel first, and also we have a segment where we talk about that in that show. I would say that I'm not dreading the sequel as much as I was having to watch 2. I'm actually a little bit interested to see where it goes. If we have to watch any more, though, no, I'm not looking forward to it. But that's not because this film isn't good, is that I know those, if any of the ones past 2, I know they're awful. Some are like straight to video. And I've already seen the Metascore and IMDb score of some of those, and they're surprisingly low. Though I am interested in the one that has Henry Cavill in it.
Oh yeah, you did say he was in one, and that was shocking to me.
Yeah, he's the only like real noticeable actor in any of these films.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how it's gonna go. Like I said, I'm gonna reserve some opinions until we do that episode. So do be listening out for that when we get to our bonus objective. We're gonna be watching that and debriefing that. You also have our next main objective to look forward to. We are doing another horror classic for the month of Halloween. Bryant, do you want to tell us what that is?
So, Caitlyn, you love Halloween.
I do.
We are watching a lot of Halloween films this past month. Caitlyn's doing her big watching all the Halloween films. I'm watching a lot of them in preparation for the end of the Halloween reboot trilogy, requel trilogy, whatever you want to call it. And Halloween was actually inspired by another film back in the 1970s as well, I believe 1976, Black Christmas. And so Black Christmas is known to be kind of one of the starters to the slasher genre. We've been talking a lot about slasher, so it just seems appropriate that for this Halloween season, we go ahead and, talk about the classic.
Yeah, and that's one that I haven't seen, and being a Halloween fan, I am excited for it. I think I might have seen some of a remake, but that, that doesn't count.
No.
But as Bryant said, I am watching all of the Halloween movies in the franchise in preparation for Halloween Kills, and if you want to follow along with that, I am giving some tidbits and trivia on the film, as well as just going over my overall thoughts as I watch them in my live tweets on Twitter at OpSilverScreen. On Instagram, we're also going to be at OpSilverScreen, and we're going to be posting some lists and stuff for the Halloween season. So give us a follow there. On Facebook, we're at Operation Silver Screen, but again, on Twitter and Instagram, it is OpSilverScreen. You can also see what we're watching throughout the week, maybe some extra reviews for things that we're not covering on the podcast on our personal letterboxes. You can find Bryant at Swag Seal, that's capital S, and for my personal letterbox, you can find me at Coffee Spoon Kate, that's Coffee Spoon CAIT. So give us a follow there.
Till next time, we'll be in HQ. I'm Bryant.
And I'm Caitlyn.
See you.